All right, Psalm 46. Let's call this one Forever Cease, in a psalm that starts off once again describing God as our refuge, as it's going to conclude in a similar way, describing him as our fortress. Of course, more specifically, describing him as a refuge and a fortress for the people of Israel, but understanding that the new covenant describes us as engrafted branches into the body of Israel. It seems like it is a promise that we can at least draw some wisdom from as well. Understanding that it begins in verse 1. God is our refuge, going on to say, therefore we will not fear, though, it's going to say a number of things, the earth gives way, or though the mountains be moved into the sea, though its waters roar and foam, or though the mountains tremble at its swelling. They are still going to be confident as it goes on to describe a city in which God exists as their fortress. Verse 4, there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. And even though in verse 6 it's going to say the nations rage, the kingdoms are going to totter, he utters his voice and the earth melts, leading to verse 7 where it says the God of Jacob is their fortress, the fortress that exists there. Before it goes on to conclude, beginning around verse 8, come behold the works of the Lord, how he brings desolations, but not just desolations, how he more impressively, at least to me, makes war cease, not just cease, but to the end of the earth, before it goes on to caution the people. Okay, what should we do in response to all that? Well, this is another psalm letting us know to be still and know, famous passage, that he is God. As it concludes, as we mentioned in verse 11, he is the God of Jacob, our fortress. Verse 9, where it says, he makes war cease to the end of the earth, reminding me of something I heard this week when a former U.S. government official was asked his impressions about the recent war between Israel and Palestine, and especially to the degree it was likened to our 9/11. He gave a cautionary bit of advice. He said, going into it, if I had to do things over again, and this is me paraphrasing, he would make sure that the actions that they took going in had an eye towards creating a lasting peace, as opposed to destabilizing the potential for a lasting peace. And so his advice to Israel going into this situation was to take any action that they saw fit with an eye towards creating a lasting peace, as opposed to the kinds of actions that might destabilize or further make difficult the potential for a lasting peace. Why did that matter to me? Because over and over again in the Psalms, we see God helping us to understand, as this psalm says, there are times when we need to be still and know that he is God, because the things that we do can never create the kind of peace that he creates to the end of the earth. As it's saying once again in verse 9, he makes war cease to the end of the earth. And even though there are times when we are supposed to rightly act, if we are truly the people of God, we are trying to do things with his perspective, understanding that when he once again calls us to action, God willing, we are asking him for the discernment of ways in which we can act that will likewise create a lasting peace, as opposed to the kinds of actions that will actually make a lasting peace more difficult. Understanding that we may never be put in the difficult position of having to lead a nation during a time of war. We all have our individual conflicts, and the same wisdom would probably help us all. And so my prayer for you is my prayer for me, to the degree that we have our own interpersonal conflicts to deal with. At times when God is no longer calling us to be still, but he is giving us permission to act, may we look to God for the wisdom to understand ways in which, as much as it depends on us, we can create a lasting peace.